Okay, good vach. We're up to Tes Zayin on the base, two dots, about 10, 15 lines up from the bottom. We spoke about that you can't help them build the goyim, build basilicas and guard them, different types of structures that would be for shvichas damim and or judgment. So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Baruch Chana Yochanan. Gimel basilicas hain. There are three types of basilicas, these type of structures. Shal malachei avdei kechavim, one. Shal machetziah is two. Shal leitzrois, and three that they would use what for storage. Amarava beis leheter, two are permitted. The echad leisser, two are permitted, and one would be asa, right? That you're not allowed to help them. Okay, lesser malchayim bezikim, and the simin is lesser malchayim bezikim. The malachim is asa because they were judged in nefashos there. The ikadi army amarava kula leheter, they're all permitted. They're all permitted. You know, it's not here he is. They're all permitted. Okay, Penny, we're up to Masechta Avodah Zorah, and we're up to page 16b, and we're up to 16b, probably article 3 or 4, probably something like that. I don't know which one. Okay, towards the bottom. Amar Rav Kula heta, but Tananin Boinani Mon Basilki Garden Itztaya Ubima. So how can you say that all basilicas are permitted when our Mishnah says you can't build them? So it says the Gemara, read the Mishnah, Ema shall garden mishal itztaba v'shal bima, right? Don't read it what as basiliki garden, read it as what as garden itztaya, the stadium in bima. Tanabanan. Now I got it to time. A night of Agadata. Kishenifis Rabbi Eliezer Leminus. Rabbi Eliezer was chapped for what? For minus, for dealing with what? For minus, dealing with the Talmidim of Yeshu. Helu legardam, lidon, they brought him up to the gardam to judge him. Amaloi oise hegmoin. So the governor, whoever was in charge over there, the Roman, says to him, Zokin shekamoischa yasik b'dvarim b'telim alalu. You're such a zakin, such a smart man. How can be busy with the dvarim b'telim, mitzvah, Torah, mitzvahs? Amaloi, Rebbe Lezer told him, Neman olav dayan. Right? The dayan, he trusts me. The judge is, I trust the judge. Kasava oise hegman olav huaymer. He thought he was speaking about him, that he trusted him. Of course, Rebbe Eliezer was speaking about the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Amaloi, so this Hegman said to Rebbe Eliezer, since you trusted me, Demus patata, I swear by Demus with some type of Avodah Zorah. And Taisus, look at Taisus. Demus is pata asa pirish berachmem avodas kachavim shalai. In the rachmanis of the Avodah Zorah on you, the rachmanis of Avodah on you, and so you're off the hook. Kishabola Beisa, when Eliezer came home, Nichnis Talmidim etzloi menachem. The Talmidim came to go ahead and be menachem him because he was very upset that he found himself what and figure out why he ended up in that situation. Like he will love tanchumim, and he didn't go ahead and accept tanchumim. Amalai Rabbi Akiva says Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tasheni loima dava echad mimashel antani. Can I go ahead and darshan one of the things that you taught me? So Amalai Emar, Rabbi Lezer said to him, sure. Amalai Rabbi Akiva said to Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shema minus boli yadcha. Maybe some type of minus came to your hands, right? The hinacha, and you were happy. There is maybe some situation occurred that you were happy that Mida Keneged Mida, Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show you what you did wrong, and therefore you ended up in the situation of being tried for minus. The olav nit fasta, and you were chap because of that. So Amalei Rabbi Eliezer said, Akiva his kartani. You just reminded me. Pamacha sayisi mahalif b'shuke elyon shel tzipuri. I was walking in the upper markets of Tzipuri. Umatsasi echad. Yaakov ish kfar sechanya shemo, and I found a min. His name is Yaakov ish kfar sechanya. Now I have over here from the Chesronis Hashas. I met umatzasi echad mitalmida Yeshu hanoitzri. I met one of the Talmidim of Yeshu hanoitzri, and his name was Yaakov Ishkvas Chasanya. The Yavitz over here says something fascinating, fellas. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, they lived after the Churban Bayis. We learned in Kuf Zayin in Sanhedrin that Yeshu was a Talmud of Yeshua ben Prachya, who was lived during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. To reconcile that, not the first time I heard this, fellas, the Yavitz, Rav Yaakov Emden, says there were two Yeshus. We've said that before. There were two Yeshus. Because you have one now living after the Churban Rebbe Eliezer, and one, we know Yeshua ben Prachi. Guys, remember the story? He went like this, Shema, and he went like this, and he thought it was the final thing. And he thought, so fascinating. Anyway, so Umatzayechav Yaakov Shmai, Amali, this min said to Rebbe Eliezer, Kasib b'tay Raschem, it says in your Torah, like Savi Esnan Zayna, right? Umechir Kelev, Beis Hashem Elokecha. Let's say something that was the Zayna made some money or a Kelev, and you transfer it into an animal or something, you can't use it for the Beis Hamikdash. Malasu Seimenu, Beis Hakisei L'Kohen Gadol. Let's see for the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, he sequestered. Can we go ahead and use the money for that to go ahead and make a Beis Hakisei? And then Tosfos points out that the rice is not a shaila, because even if we needed a limud to tell me, fellas, that you couldn't use Esnan Zoyna for the inside of the Kodesh Kedoshim. Mashma without a limud you could. So there's not a problem over here, but maybe midrabanan. He held it was a shaila. Could you use Esnan Zoyna, the money that is got by this act? Could you use that to go ahead and make a basic hisei? Well, and I didn't answer him. So I'm a lead. So the min said, guys, in fact, min stands for mitalmidai yeshu noitzri. That's what mem yud nun. Mitalmidai yeshu noitzri. That's what it stands for. So I'm a lead. So kach limtani. This is what my master taught me. The master was Yishai, guys. That's what it says in the Cheseres Hashas. He's quoting Yeshu. Ki me esnan zoyna ki batza v'ad esnan zoyna yeshuvu. They were collected for the esnan of a zoyna, and they'll come back. And they'll come back to be the esnan of a zoyna. What do we mean? Mimakam atinoifes manu. They came from a place of shmutz, the act of the zoyna. L'makam atinoifes yelechu. They'll go to a place of shmutz. And the place of shmutz is the Beis Hakisei. So using this idea that it came from a makam tinoifes, go back to makam tinoifes. And guess what? The Nani Adava. And then Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hukin said, yeah, it speaks to me. So this was not a good thing. They said it faster than minus. That's why I was schap for what? For minus. And I went against what the Torah says. Harcheik me'aloha darkecha. Distance yourself from her, zuminus, stay away from minus. So first to what? Roshus. Rashi says Roshus. This third line down, sultanos shenoislim einehem bebalei mamin lahargan velital mamoinam. These are politicians who, worse than that, they look for people who have money, and then they'll go ahead and curse them and get rid of and kill them and get their money. So stay away from minus and stay away from Russians. Okay, vikidiyami harchek me'olah darchecha zu minus v'harashus. So that's included in one. Let's stay away from the house of Bezayna. The Kama, how long should you stay away? What's the distance? Rav Chisda 4 amas. For Rabbanon, l'chayra, who they don't like the pshat that was given by Rabbi Eliezer, that the min told Rabbi Eliezer in this pasuk that they don't like the pshat, right? Haim esnan zoyna my darshi. What do they do with that pasuk? That they said me esnan zoyna kivatsa. Says Gemara Kidav Chisda, Damrav Chisda, Kol zoyna sheniskeres lebesayif hi secheres. In the end, if she hires herself out, she's going to have to hire someone for her. Shnemar ubesitech esnan ve'esnan lo yinitein lach v'ati lehepech. It's going to be the opposite. She's going to have to pay someone to be with her. Upligi Rav Padas, and the Gemara, and it argues with Rav Padas that Rav Chisda says you should stay away from. There's a mitzvah to stay away from 4 amas from a Zionist house. There's no Rav Padas disagrees. Upligi Rav Padas, then Rav Padas when it says to distance yourself, it's speaking about physical contact. It's not speaking about staying away from the house. It's speaking about what? physical contact, to stay away. Shnemar, ish el kol sher b'saroi sikrav legalis erva. Okay, so he was speaking about physical. So he argues on Rav Chisda. Now, the Gemara brings in something that's fascinating. Ula ki havi asim mibei Rav. Ula, when he returned from the yeshiva, havi menashek luhu lachvase abeyadayu. He would kiss his sisters on their arms, v'milo abeyadayu, and on their chest. Now notice it says abeyadayu and abeyadayu. Upligi didei adidei, and Ula, by physically coming in contact with his sister, is arguing on himself. Dama Ula kreva ba'alma asar, right? Mishum lech amen nazira schar schar lekam sikrav. So just like a nazir has to stay away from wine, you have to stay away from an erva, and therefore you should not be kissing your sister on the arm or on the chest. So the Gemara just brings in this stira and doesn't answer it, right? Usually you answer a stira in Ula. We didn't answer the stira in Ula. So you look at Taisvis, upligi didei adidei. It's the third Taisvis from the bottom. Upligi didei adidei. Umasha hoya meka la'atzmai. Hainu mishum didamya leha. Right? That he was what? Mekel by himself. Didamya leha ki kishura kidamina bereish. Perek beis the ksubis. We have a Gemara there. It's the Gemara concerning Ketzab Raglim of Akala. And Rav Chanan used to dance with the kala on the shoulders and hold them up in the air. So just like Rav Chanan was not affected by physical contact with women, so too Ula wasn't. And so in other words, that's the teretz to the stira. In other words, that's for a normal person to stay away. But Ula was not a normal person, and therefore, okay, I found the Teres Chaim guys over here that I find so fascinating because it's one of my pet peeves. It's one of my pet peeves, and he was preaching to the choir. We may have to go off camera for a while after this. Do you see Rashi letters? You see Rashi letters?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, we won't do all of it. We're going to do part of it. It says Abei Yodayu v'imiloi Abei Chadayu. Midaloi nokit shas adi Yodayu directly on the hand, v'achadayu on the chest. It says Abei Yodayu, Abei Chadayu. What's the Abei? Mashmad lo yavi menashik l'hu alayad v'alachoza gufayu, not on the hand or chest itself. El al beis yad u beis hachoza. The hainu al hamalbush shemachnisim boy hayad, on the sleeve, right? Therefore, it said kreva itself is asa. The avi harchaka kitsas. Even in this case, where you didn't have harchaka because you didn't have direct contact with the flesh, only with a piece of clothing, nonetheless asa. Okay, let's skip this. Venera, listen to this, guys. This is unbelievable. Venera. The asal leches b'mechoil imakala b'shivas yemei hamishta. It's asa to dance with a kala the 7 days. Afilu eina oiches biyad mamish. Even if you don't hold her hand, it's asa leches b'mechoil to go dance imakala b'shivas yemei hamishta. Afilu eina oiches biyad mamish.
You got to raise it.
You got to raise it.
Yeah.
Is it good now?
No.
No, it's not good. Venera, you don't see it?
No, the bottom line is where it ends and skip the head.
I got to raise it or lower it?
Raise it.
You don't see it now.
No, it's the same thing. Nothing's changed.
Okay, let me see if I can do something.
The last time, there you go. That was better.
That was better.
That was better?
Then it popped out. Now we're back to you.
Now back to Kenny.
Is better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, if I can make it a little bigger, it might be better. I don't know if I can make it bigger. Okay. You could see Venera Dasa where I have the.
Yes, we can see it now.
I feel like I'm taking an eye exam.
Yeah, trust me, it's fine.
that was a layup.
Better, worse, better, worse.
Right, better, worse.
Don't worry, he's gonna bill it to Medicaid.
V'nira, the asa leleches b'mechoyel im hakala. It's asa to go dancing with the kala b'shivas me'amishta. Afilu eina oiches biyad mamish. Even if you don't hold on to it physically on a hand. Ela behefsik matbachas. Even if you're using a handkerchief, you can't do it. Kiderech shenoigin miktsas talmidi chachamim shebadar hazeh. Afilu hachi lav shaper avdi. You're not doing the right thing. Kidemash mahacha. The shum kreva ba'alma asa. Any type of kreva is asa, even through what, a piece of clothing, like he began abei yadayu, abei chazyayu, right? It's not permitted, right? The ein lechalik ben kala lacheres. There's no difference between a kala and any other woman. In the man the matzi lemeimar the dam yalel kikshura. You're going to say you're like Ula, that she's like a beam on you. V'layomru chachamim mele ketzad meragim lifnei hakala. V'loy im hakala. It doesn't say to dance with the kala. It says to dance lifnei hakala. Okay, I got the pasuk shas b'reish perek t'ksubis beis t'ksubis. The also listakel b'fnei kala. You should look at her kol shivik k'moshe also listakel b'isha acheres. V'oisa b'nei b'liyala holchim b'mecholim noshim the alma la'im. Oimer hakosav. If you go dancing with women, he brings the pasuk. This fellas is brought down lehalacha in Evan or Eza samechei in the Pischei Tshuva base. So it's interesting to find out what the makar for a mitzvah tans would be. Now, be aware there is the Gemara in Saita Yushalmi that we did this Gemara. The kohen has to wave the mincha with the saita. Now, he can't touch her hand. So they said they would put him at bachas over there. So therefore, from there, you would seem to think that it would be permitted. But clearly, the Teres Chaim is not a big fan of a mitzvah tans at all. Okay, so we answered up Ula. Now, something similar to this. La'alukas shtei bonos. Hav. So a pasuk says in Mishlei, La'aluka shtei bonov. Aluka has two daughters who say, Hav, gimme. Aluka, according to Pashit, is a leech. According to Tosfos, it's a name of a Talmud Chacham that's from Shlomo's, and another one says his name is Gehenim. So you have a whole potpourri. My Hav, Amar Mar Ukva, right? Kol shtei bonos shetzeyakas megehenim. You have the voice of two daughters who are crying out from Gehenim. Vaymeres boilam hazeh, and they say in this world, Hav, umayniu. Who are these daughters? Minus v'Rushus. And as they get your Minus and Rushus will get to Gehenim. Ikudi Amri Amr of Tista Amram Marukva. Kol Gehenim Sayakas Vaymeres calls out. It says Vavioli Shtei Mamis. Give me your two daughters. Shetzaakis Vaymeres Boilam Hazeh Havei. Kol Boeha Lo Yeshuva. This is an interesting pasuk. Kol Boeha Lo Yeshuvan. Anyone who comes to Avodah Zorah Lo Yeshuvan, they don't do tshuva. Lo Yasigu Orchas Chayim, and therefore they won't go ahead and have life. Once they don't do tshuva, Heichin Yasigu, what kind of havamina would you have? The havamina is, guys, it's speaking about the next world. That anyone who will not get the next world. Pashit, if they don't do tshuva, of course they're not getting the next world. So Hachi Kamar, the Im Yeshuvu, Lo Yasigu Orchas Chayim. If they go ahead, and if they go ahead and they do tshuva, they're not going to live. If they go ahead and they do tshuva, they're not going to go ahead and live. You hear this? If Baal tshuva does tshuva for minus, guys, they won't live. So Marsha says something here that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I'll just preface it with Chanoich. In Bereshis, fellas, there's a person Chanoich that everyone's living to 900 and he's living to 365. He lives to 365. Rashi brings that he was a tzaddik, and his generation would have affected him. He would have been easily went ahead and gone over to the other side. So Hashem took him early, so he should be a tzaddik. He should die as a tzaddik. In fact, there's an opinion that he became the Malach Matat. Matat is Chanoich. So Marsha says over here, if a person is oduk to minus, he's so involved in minus, and he goes ahead and does tshuva, the possibility of him going back to that is very great. That's how strong it is. So you know what Kodesh Baruch Hu does? He takes him early that he should go ahead and do, and that's the pasuk, guys. It says, "V'im yeshuvu," if you do tshuva, lo yasigu orchas chayim, you're not going to continue to live. Says the Marsha, because Hashem is going to take you early, and that you shouldn't go back because it's such a taiva to go back. A geshmaka pshat. Okay. Afraid Gemara, remember the kol parish minas mayas. Just because you're parish from minas, you're going to die. But there was this woman, the Asal Kameder of Chista. V'yamalei, she told Rav Chista, you know what? I'm not such a tzaddikus, as you can imagine. Kalisha b'kalis. One of the easier averis that I did is asa b'no hakatan b'no hagadol. I had my youngest son from my oldest son. She was mizanim with her oldest son, and she had a younger son. That was one of the easier averis. V'yamalei Rav Chista, tircha la b'zavdita. Go ahead and get ready her zavdita. That means seder l'derech. In terms of guys, it means her tachrichin. Tachrichin, get ready for tachrichin, right? V'loy mesa, and she didn't die. When what? He said one of the easier ones you did was this act of snus. Mechal the minas nami haviba. Mechal what? He had minas and what? And she didn't die. So you see that just because you do tshuva, you're not going to die. Says the Gemara, she didn't do a complete tshuva, but she didn't die. But if you do complete tshuva, you will die. Ikad army, minas in, me'avera loy. We're going to apply the pasuk in the following situation. Minas in, from minas you will go ahead and you will die. Me'avera loy, but not from another avera. In other words, mashma only minas, but another avera not. Ivamahi, the Asi Kamed of Chista, this woman came from Chista, the Yomalar of Chista, Svidale Zavadata, go ahead and make her Tachrichin, Umesa, and she did die. So now what do you see? She died because of this nus, not because of what? Of minus. Says the Gemara, when she said what? The minus nami havi, that's why she died. In other words, according to Ikadiyami, it's a raya. It's a raya. She came to do tshuva. And she said, the easiest Aveira I did was the Aveira of Znus. So, and she died. So we want to say she died because of the Znus? No. She died. If that was the easy Aveira, she must have certainly had Avodah Zorah, which is more Shvera Aveira. And therefore, this is a raya that you die because of Minus. Aveira loy, and for Aveira not, this is one of the most famous Gemaras in Shas, guys. This Gemara is one of the most famous Gemaras in Shas. Omru Vatanya. I'll show you a person who died and had nothing to do with Minus. Amru Allah al Rabbi Eliezer ben Dudoy. It says on Rabbi Eliezer ben Dudoy, this person did not have one zayna in the world that he was not with. Pamachas, one time, Shama sheyesh zayna achas b'krachi ayam. He heard that there's a zayna in the krachi ayam overseas. They tell us kiss dinarim b'schara, and she took a kiss of dinarim for her wages. Natal kissed dinarim, he took the money. V'halach v'avar aleha sheva naharais. He put himself, Mamish guy put himself in danger. He went over 7 seas, 7 rivers. B'shas hergol, in the time they were going to be Isaac and Znus. Davar heficha. What happened? Hergol davar. B'shas hergol davar heficha. I know she burped. Rashi says ruach, so she expelled some type of sound, either burp or something else. Amra kashem shaficha zu eina chezeres. She's giving musa, just like this ruach is not going to come back. Lem kaima kacha loza bardudoi ein mekabel ma'isai b'tshuva. That's what she said. Halach v'yoshev ben shnei harim b'gavois. He went ahead and he sat between 2 rivers. He sat down and he sat down between the harim and the gavois. He sat down between the mountains and the valleys. And Amar, he said, harim and gavois, bakshu le'rachim es rachim for me. Amaloi, they said to him, At shonim avakshim alav nevakesh la'atzmeinu yet shenemar ki hahorim yamushu v'agvois temutenu. Amar shemayim v'oretz bikshu le'rachimim. Right. Amru at shonim avakshim alav nevakesh la'atzmeinu shenemar ki shemayim ka'oshlan nimlachu. Shemayim is like what? It's like smoke. V'oretz kabege tivle, and earth. Again, these psukim are like a garment. Ama chamul levana bakshu l'rachim, the sun and the moon. Yesrak amaloi at shonim avakshim alav nevakesh la'atzmeinu shenemar v'chofra halvana u'boishes achama. Ama kechovim mazolis bakshu le'rachimim. Amaloi at shonim avakshim alav nevakesh la'atzmeinu shenemar v'namaku kol tzva shemayim. Amar eina dabatoli alabi. So Niach Roishbein Berkov, he put his head between his knees. He cried out so much until his neshama left him. Yatsa Baskal Amra, Rabbi Elazar ben Dudoi mizumin l'chayil haba. Right? Iva hahacha ba'avera ha'ava umeis. He died as a result of avera, not minus. And for the Gemara, Hasanami came in the Adik Batuva, since Elazar ben Dudoi was so involved in this, like minus, right? But minus time is like minus. In other words, it's you're connected to something like that. Ad kedei kach, to be able to go ahead and leave that, you will die. In other words, again, according to the Marsha, he would have a propensity to go back to that. So this is a very famous Gemara. So two Nakudis. One, it says Rebbe Elazar bar Dudai. What was he the Rebbe of? What was he the Rebbe of? Says Rav Hutner Zatzal, he was the Rebbe of Tshuva. Says Rav Hutner, guys, he was the Rebbe of Tshuva. He was the Rebbe that taught you, guess what? No matter how far you're gone, there's always a chance. Not one Zayin in the world that he wasn't with, as I state in the Gemara. Crazy amount. This guy was a Bal Taiba She'en Kamohu. She'en Kamohu, an addict. What we call an addict, right? An addict. And nonetheless, what? He did Tshuva. Says Rav Hutner, he was the Rebbe of Tshuva. He's the Rebbe of Tshuva. He's the one that's going to teach you that what? There's another Nakuda here from Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. Very famous. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz was known. He was a Rav Chaim Shmulevitz was the Rosh Yeshiva of Mir during Shanghai, and in Eretz Yisrael, he was nifta in 1977, I believe. So he was the Rosh Yeshiva. He was my Rebbe's Chavusa in Grodna, or should I say, he learned with my Rebbe in Grodna. He was, I think, 7 or 8 years older than my Rebbe, and they used to learn in Grodna. He asked the Rosh Yeshiva to learn with him. The Rosh Yeshiva said he goes to sleep, so he says we'll learn from 2 to 6. That was the Seder, 2 to 6, and they were great buddies. They were great buddies. Rav Chaim came to the yeshiva once. My Rebbe was, my brother Zalman came to the Beis Medrash at 5:30 a.m. He found the Rosh Yeshiva doing sponja. Rosh Yeshiva was doing sponge in the Beis Medrash at 5:30. My brother ran over to him, Zalman, to take it away. He goes, name? He goes, what's this? He goes, mein Rebbe kommt. Rav Chaim was coming to yeshiva to give a shmuz. Rav Chaim was coming to give a shmuz. It was amazing. She was covered a Torah. Anyway, they were really buddies. I'll tell you a cute story. So Rav Shiva was crazy. Rav Chaim came in and Rav Shiva was taking off his hat, and Rav Chaim was going like this, like, leave me alone. Rav Shiva was taking off his coat and everything. Anyway, they went out, and Rav Shiva didn't know anyone was looking. And he went ahead and he wound up and he gave Rav Chaim a shot in the ribs like that. Hillel was looking. You know, they're good buddies, like from the old times. They give him a shot in the ribs. It was geschmack. Anyway, so Rav Chaim was my Rebbe said on Rav Chaim, I'm quoting, he said it to me in a taxi. Rav Chaim is a Yid, was his duch geharvit in Sifra, Sifri, Mechilta, Yerushalmi, und versteht sich Bavli. He knows everything. But duch geharvit meant duch geharvit. But it's interesting, he was more known for his shmuzin. He used to give shmuzin, and from 1971 to 73, one of his Talmidim went ahead and wrote them down, and we have a sefer called Sichas Musa as a result. It's a wonderful sefer. It's wonderful. There's an English edition, guys, if you're interested. It's wonderful. He speaks about human nature in such a way of understanding and clarity. And listen what he says he speaks about what he calls Rugel Tartar Dema. A person gets sucked into a certain way. In other words, if you do something often enough, it becomes so, you're used to it, and it becomes, it's hard to separate from it because it becomes so much part of you. And the only way that to break it is to act upon a sudden thing. Something happens suddenly. And he brought a raya from Elazar bar Dudai Gemara. Here you have this person who was with every zayna in the world. He mamish, a true addict, right? To the umpteenth degree. An unbelievable addict. Unbelievable. What caused him to do tshuva? A burp from a zayna? A burp from a zayna, and her telling what? Just like the burp's not coming back, you can't do tshuva. And that motivated him. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible? That sometimes a person gets a blitz, something, You live your life a certain way. He brings a raya from Esav. Esav came along, and he was making a macha by the burial of Yaakov Avinu, that he should be buried in Maras Machpelah, not Yaakov. And they began handling with him. They began handling back and forth, until they sent Naphtali back to Mitzrayim to get the star, right? As they're handling it, Hushim ben Don, who's totally deaf, looks and goes, my grandfather is a Bezoyan, and he's lying here when they're buried. Went ahead, he took a head, and he killed Esav. Killed Esav. His head rolled in. Machloikas with you. Who killed him? But the bottom line is, why was he different than everybody else? Is he couldn't hear. Since he couldn't hear, he wasn't getting used to the situation. As the situation unfolded, you begin to talk, you begin to negotiate. He couldn't hear. So he didn't have any of this Hergel Tardema. He didn't have any of this, right? And he went straight ahead. But this is a classic example of Rav Chaim's derech, guys. It's really very good safe. It's a safe of growth. It's self-growth, and it's not a derech musa. It's just, first of all, you see Rav Chaim's taka. He knew everything. He just brings in from everywhere over, Shas and Poskim and all over the place. Fantastic. It's a Maran Koimis, and I still remember this piece. This piece he also brings in Lehilchas Tshuva. It's very geschmack. Now, what's this going on over here? He's talking to the sun, the moon, the stars. What is it going? You look at the bottom Tosfos. Says the bottom Tosfos. They didn't answer him. This is all in his mind. That's what they could have answered. It was the sar of the harim that was answering him. You know, so it could be that it was answering him, but. Okay, go weiter. Bacha Rebbe, when Rebbe, the story of Rav Elazar ben Dudai, Rebbe, Yesh Koina Olam B'Kama Shonim, there's a person who could take many years to go ahead and get to the next world. Yesh Koina Olam B'Sha'achas. Elazar ben Dudai is the classic example. One Sha'achas is able to get there. V'amar Rebbe, Lo Yidayin LeBali Tshuva Shem Mekabel my son. Not only the Bali Tshuva, but that the Mekabel, Lo Shekoyin Osa Rebbe, they even called Rebbe, and that's where Rav Hutton said his word, that he was, there's a very nice Ben Yoda, guys, that Rebbe and Riv are the same word. So Riv is when you have strife in your life, right? In other words, he fought, Riv to fight. He fought against his Yetzer Hara, and therefore he became what? Rebbe. He became, instead of Reish Yud Beis, he switched around the Beis and the Yud, he became Rebbe. Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Yonason, Habi Kozal Borchi, Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yonason, they were going on the way. Matu Lahani Trey Shvili, they came to a fork in the road. Chad Pasi Apischa Avodah Suchav, and one of them went ahead and led to the house of Avodah Zorah. The Chad Pasi Apischa, the base Nois, one led to the house of Znus. Amalei Le Chavi, one said to his Chaver, Nezel Apischa Avodah Suchav, let's go to the Pesach Avodah Zorah Midbeis. Why should we go there? The Nichas Yitzra, because there's no Yetzer Hara over there. Yetzer Hara has been Geshachten. You remember the Gemara, guys, in Samech Dalin and Sanhedrin, where we discussed Anshe Knesset Agdol Davin that the Taiva Avodah Zorah should be gone. Came out like a golden lion, and they put it in a. Okay, so therefore, let's go past there. It'll be safer for us, rather than what? Then Neisla Piskla de Beis Zainis. The other one said, "Amalei, no, we'll go pay Zainis. Nichbeli Yitzur and Mekabel Igra, and we'll go ahead, and we'll fight a Yetzer Hara, and then we'll go ahead and get schar." Kimat Hasam. They reached the house of the Zainis. Chazinu l'Zainis is Chanu Mikamai. The Zainis saw them and they went back into their house. Amalei, some manolacha. So one said to the other, "How do you know that this was going to happen?" Amalei, mizima tishma minolacha. Amalei, mizima tishma alecha tevuna titzrechena. It says that she'll watch over you from zima, and understanding will go ahead and be shomer over you. So Amalei Rabban l'Rav. Now they can judge. Are going to explain this pasuk. Amalei Rabban l'Rava. My mizima. What does it mean mizima? Ilema Torah means it's other word for Torah. The Chsiv Bei Zima, because in the Torah it says Zima. On Zima here, guys. We just had it. We said we had the pasuk in Zima here, right? By a mother-in-law and Zima here. Okay, so what is it? Zima, the Targum of Zira is Atzas Cheten. The teaches Zima is what? The Eitzah of Chet. L'kasiv Hifli Eitzah Higdil Toshia. It's wondrous is his advice, and great is his chachma. So you see that what atzas is taich atzas is zima is atzas, and atzas is Torah is atzas. It shouldn't say mi zima, it should just say zima mi boile, not mi zima, it should say zima. So mahachi kama. This is how you read it. Midvar zima, from a matter of znus, tishma alecha Torah tinetzrena. Torah is going to watch over you. So that's how we knew the one who said we passed by the house of Avodah Zorah, the Torah is going to watch over us. Tanrabanan. Kishenifsu Rebbe Elazar ben Prata of Reb Chanina ben Tradian. Rebbe Elazar ben Prata and Reb Chanina ben Tradian, the Romans got them. This was after the Churban Bias, fellas. After the Churban Bias, and Hadrian, he had gone ahead and he had outlawed you couldn't do mitzvahs over in Torah. So they were both chap, they were both in prison. Similar Rebbe Elazar ben Prata, Reb Chanina ben Tradian. Ashrecha shenit fastal davar echad. You were chap for one thing. But I was chap for 5 things, which we're going to see soon enough. So I'm a Reb Chanina told Reb Elazar, Ashrecha, you're more fortunate than I am. You were chap for 5 things, but you're going to live. I was chap for what? For one thing, and I'm going to be executed. Because you were oisik in Torah Chasadim, and I was only oisik what? In Torah. And I was only what? I was only oisik what in Torah, and therefore what? I'm gonna pay the price. That's what he told him. I'm gonna pay the price. Uchid Rav Huna, Dam Rav Huna, Kol oisik b'Torah b'lvad, Doime Kamisha Elokaya. Person who's only oisik in Torah, it appears if he has no God. Shenemar, God to protect them, Rashi learns. They don't have God to protect them. Shenemar, the Nabi says to Asa the Melech, V'yomim rabim liyisrael l'loy elokei emes, right? And loy koyin moira loy Torah, my l'loy elokei emes. Shekol oisik b'Torah b'lvad doima k'misha ein loy elokah. So anyone who's oisik in Torah alone, what if he doesn't? It's like he has no elokah. So what does this mean? So I have a meiri. How do you get this? I don't know. We're having a technical difficulty over here. This. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. I'm sorry, I can't. I thought I had it on the screen. If it's problematic. Let me. This is the meiri to explain. Like you're just learning Torah, like you have, it's like Velakus to protect you. It says the meiri. Anyone who's not Mekayim mitzvahs gets punished. A person who learns Torah and it's not Mekayim, the derech of the Torah, to be Gomel Chesed and Brias to others, who nenash b'yoisa, who'll be punished more. If he knows the Ratzon of Hashem, who parka me'alav, and he's being pirate that Ratzon. V'doime k'mishu elokai, and it's as if he has no God. Well, if he's there, pirish, lo elokei emes, hainu, shebezeh she'eno oisik b'mitzvahs. If he's not oisik in mitzvahs, mar ba'atzmai k'viyachol she'en lo elokai, who parik me'alav oil malchus shemayim. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu, guys, his whole purpose of creation is to do chesed and gomel chesed to others, and this person learns Torah and doesn't get the message, so he's being pirik that. He's being pirik the oil of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's like he doesn't have Hashem. Hainu shehana hagasle doime k'vishen mekabel alatzmei ol malchus shemayim. His haga is if he's not mekabel on himself ol malchus shemayim. That's where the Meiri learns this. That's k'mishen olakah. That you didn't get the memo. The purpose of creation is what is that we should go ahead and emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. By you not going ahead and So Reb Chanina wanted a taina that you, Reb Elazar ben Parta, you have Gemilas Chesed and Torah. I only have Torah and I don't have Gemilas Chesed. And the Gemara questions, what do you mean Reb Chanina ben Parta did not have Torah? What does that mean? Says the Gemara. Milo lo yalakayam. Es shekol oisik b'Torah levad. Don't make me shel umegemilas chasadim. Ugefred Gemara ugemilas chasadim lo yosik. That Tanya Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov Oimer. Lo yitin odam meoisav la'arniki shel tzedakah. A person should not give money to a gabait tzedakah. Elam came memuna alav talmid chacham. Kereb Chanina ben Tradian. So we see Reb Chanina was the gabait tzedakah. We saw it in Baba Basra. He's the gabait tzedakah. So what do you mean he wasn't oisik b'Torah? And Gemilas, what he wasn't b'Gemilas chesed? I did chesed of Torah. Says Gemara him nuahu dahavi mehimna, but ma'av lo yavid. He's a trustworthy person to give it to, but in fact, what he wasn't Isaac in the chesed of tzedakah. Fred the Gemara of Tanya, how can you say that? Amaloi. So he told him. So Amaloi. So Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan said to Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. We're going to see this Gemara tomorrow, guys. Okay, this Gemara comes tomorrow. That Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan said to Rabbi Yossi Kisma, Moishel Purim nischalafu li b'moishel tzedakah. By accident, I went ahead. I had money given for Purim, and I gave it out for tzedakah. V'chilaktem la'aniyim, and then I ended up going ahead, and you're only supposed to give out Purim for Purim. And so what did he do? Since he gave it out to aniyim, from his own wallet, he went ahead and gave out. So you see that he did do chesed. He blew it. And he corrected it by giving his own money. So it says, Gemara ma'avid avad, right? Kid boy leiloi avid. He did what he could, but he could have done more. He could have done more. Anyway, that's the Maisa. So he thought as a result, his lack, I think all of us would sign up right now that we should do the chesed of Reb Chanina ben Trajan. Don't be this Gemara, don't take it for granted. Right? Anyway, Asiulu Rabbi Elazar and Prata, the Romans, they brought him up for trial. And now you're going to hear the 5 things that they had against them. Amru, my taima tonis or my taima ganaft. Why do you study Torah? And why what? Why have you accused them of stealing? So Amru lahem, saifa le sifra. Right. If I was involved with a saif, with a sword, then I wasn't learning. If sifra, and if I was involved in learning, like saifa. Umidahal lesa. Hanami less. I couldn't do both. So Mamela, I'm not guilty of either those two claims. Well, my time of Kari be Rebbe. The third. Why do they call you Rebbe? Guys, remember the Romans were very careful on smicha. Not giving out smicha. We had Yehud ben Bava. We just had the Gemara. He went ahead and gave smicha to Rabbi Akiva and the 5 Talmidim Rabbi Akiva. He gave Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Meir. He was giving them smicha, and he ended up getting killed. So. Why time I call you Rebbe? Why do you call you Rebbe? So he goes, Rabin shel Trisimana. I'm a Rebbe of weavers. Trisima weavers. Now the very cute shot, fellas, from who said it? I want to say it B'Shem Amroi. I don't see who said it, but I saw a pshat. I see so many pshatim. He said, when he goes, I'm the Rebbe of Balei Tresin. You might remember the Gemara in Brachas, where Rebbe Gamliel accused Rabbi Yeshua if Tfilis Arvis is a Rishus or not, and he made him stand, he said Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. So he goes, let's wait till the Balei Tresin come in, the warriors. So that he wasn't lying when he said Tarsiim, he really was really saying Balei Tresin. Right, with the warriors of Torah. So isolate Trey. So they wanted to check out if he's a Rebbe of Tresin. So actually Trey Kibure. They bought him two types of wool. Now we know there's a Shesi ve'erev, and there are different types of wool. One is thicker than the other. So Amalei, Hay the Shasya v'Hay the Arva. Which one is the Shesi? Which one is the Erev? Now he knew as much about that as Mamdani knows about running a city. Israchash la nisa, a nest happened, and Asya ziburta isivu al shisya, a female bee sat on the shesi. The Asya zibura v'yasi al the irba, and a male bee came and sat on the arev. And it seems that the shesi is makabel the arev, so he knew what it is. Amalahu, he said, "Hay the shashiv, hay the irva." So now you might be wondering, how can a person tell the difference between a female bee and a male bee? So if you look at the bottom Tosfos, Asya zibur to pierce country, zibur zachav, zibur nekeva, below nera, shein nikra kol kach b'min cotton kazeh bein zachav and nekeva. Yesh mefarshim shein shnei minim, k'may tarnagol to the agma. In other words, there are different types of bee. It could be a bee and a hornet. In other words, two different types of creatures. Bottom line is he was able to tell the difference. So I'm relay. So now that was the third taina they had against them. What's the fourth taina? My time Elias lebe avidan. Based avidan, they used to have discussions of Avodah Zorah and different things. Amalahu, Reb Lasa said to them, I'm an old man. I'm going to get trampled, so I don't come. So Amr, the Roman said, how many people get trampled? We're telling us baloney, no one gets trampled. So they got the match that day, and this happened that someone got trampled. So the fifth taina, my time what's the reason you feed the Eved Kanaini? Never happened. One of the Romans came to testify that he had to feed his Eved. Came along Eliyahu. He appeared as one of the chashivas of Rome. And Amalei, he told that witness who was going to testify against Rev Elazar Parta, Misrachesh Nisa Bikula, right? So Behoinam Misrachesh Nisa. Who gava Bishusa Hudaka Machvile. And what this person, this witness is what is the Romans didn't listen to what Eliyahu said, that this guy that you see that Rev Elazar Parta and the other four tainas was loyal. And they don't have a taina now, but they didn't listen to this Eliyahu. So they wanted to go ahead, and this witness was going to testify against Elazar and Parta. There was a type of igeres that was written, and they had to send it to the Romans. They sent it to this guy who was going to testify against Rabbi Elazar. Eliyahu came and paske arba mea parsi, threw this guy away a distance, and also Eliyahu never came back. So Mamela, Rabbi Elazar and Parta was over the 5, got off the hook. Unfortunately, Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan did not get off the hook, and we'll see B'ez Hashem tomorrow what happened to Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan. One of the Zorah and Ruya Malchus.